So, when I tell people that I write romance books, one of the things they most often ask me is, oh, I thought only women wrote romance. And that's a common misconception. There are actually an awful lot of men who write romance under female pen names. And the reason they write under female pen names is pretty much the same reason that a lot of women who write thrillers or horror stories or something like that write under a male pen name. In fact, I used to have a friend who wrote the most amazing historical fiction, and her traditional publisher said, oh, you're going to have to pick a more androgynous name for the cover because nobody's going to buy historical fiction written by a woman. I don't know where they got that idea from, and I don't know if it has any validity. When it comes to decisions that traditional publishing makes, I often think they are completely arbitrary. But I can't tell you where I came up with the idea that female pen names in romance sell 8 times as many books as male pen names. I presumably saw it at some point. I don't know if that's true myself. It makes sense that it would be, on one hand, because by far and away the largest readers of romance fiction are women. But on a second hand, a much bigger, weightier hand, you've got to ask yourself, did you ever not buy a book because it was written by a woman or a man? Or did you? I've bought books because they're written by specific authors. So like, I'll buy a book by Stephen King, or I'll buy a book by Jilly Cooper or Fiona Walker or C.B. Samet or Lillian Monroe, or one of these authors who's who's a woman. But I'm not buying the book because they're a woman. I'm buying a book because I like their writing. I cannot think of a single occasion in my life, and I read a lot of books, in which I haven't read a book because it was written by a man or a woman. I think it's ridiculous. But there we go. There are lots of things in life that are ridiculous. But I think the whole idea of like male and female genres and writing is a very interesting one. So I got raised in a house in which we loved books. My parents had literally thousands of books. And the interesting thing was there was a certain crossover in the books they read. My father loved science fiction paperbacks, and that was pretty much his domain. I read them a lot, and they were very formative when I was younger. But my father and mother used to read the same books. They would read the latest Jilly Cooper Bonkbuster, which is clearly marketed towards women, the latest Fiona Walker chick lit book, which is clearly marketed towards women. I read those, my father read those. We used to have fights about who was getting to read them. And then my mother would read authors like Dick Francis and other like classic thriller and action adventure authors. So to me, I got raised in an environment where books weren't really like men's books or women's books, they were just books. And I find it really interesting that when you read books, it's exactly the same thing. Either you like a book or you don't like a book. I think there is a certain validity to how men trend to write in a certain masculine tone and women trend to write in a certain feminine tone, and there are definitely differences between them. But I think it's more about tone, and I think authors aren't one or the other. Every single author in existence is somewhere on the spectrum between masculine tone and feminine tone, and I think, I write romance novels, definitely. But my thing is that I write classic romance novels to the beat of a classic romance. I'm very, very, very strict about that. But I use the romance storytelling to tell a story that happens to have guns and explosions and motorcycles and boats and all sorts of exciting things like that. And it seems to work really well for me. I found my niche and I found my audience, and as I said, I've sold 65,000 copies of my books. I've reached 320,000 readers on Kindle Unlimited. So, I'm not where I want to be, but a lot of authors will look at where I am and wish they were there. And you know what? Keep watching these videos and I will lead you down the path. But it was very interesting just recently because I decided to do something kind of crazy. So one of the things that really disappoints me when I tell people that I'm a writer is that I don't really have anything to show for it under my own name. I can say, go and check me out on Amazon. Well, they'll find a bunch of like books on boring non-fiction books on like Kindle keywords and stuff like that, and they'll find a couple of my early books. I think I keep telling you my first one, Adventure Ready, which I never sold a single copy. And then my last book that I wrote under my own name, which is a romance book. But there's nothing really to boast about, and it's disappointing to me. Because, I'm a writer. I am a successful writer. I would like to have something to show for it. And then something started brewing in the back of my mind. I would blame a guy called David Zaritsky from the Bond Experience. Hi David, if you're watching this. He is the patriarch of this awesome community of James Bond fans, because I'm nuts about James Bond. And he organised this event called Operation Gatherall in Newtown, Pennsylvania, so all the fans of his channel and stuff could descend there, drink cocktails, get to know each other, and I loved it. I had a fantastic time. I never, ever normally do anything that involves interacting with other human beings, but it was so great, because you walked in there and there were all these complete strangers, but we all had points of reference. We could talk about things that interested us. I made a bunch of new friends that time. And also I found one very important thing. So I brought along a copy of You Only Live Once, which is my silly romance book about Brexit, and I gave it to David and signed it and stuff. And then I asked him a question, like, would you read this? And it's got a picture of like a bare-chested man on the cover and stuff like that. And he said no, because of the cover. It's like, interesting. And later on, as things progressed, David's wife, Danielle, very kindly read one of my books, the book I'm proudest of, called High Point. And she said all sorts of really nice things about it. And there was one patch in particular where she observed, I'm not calling it criticism, it was an observation, but this was clearly written by a guy, because I think it was. And she said it read like a screenplay, and I was thinking very hard about, like, does this book have appeal to men as well as women? Even though it's a romance book, when I wrote it, I was totally in this like Clive Cussler sea adventure mold. And there's a ton of like action and adventure and drama. I kind of based the story arc on Star Wars. So yeah, there is a lot of red-blooded, high-octane, masculine energy in this book, even though it is a classic romance novel. And that got me thinking, maybe I'm losing out on an audience because it has the bare-chested man and the sailor's hat on the cover. Maybe if I offered sort of a male version of this book, men would like it, and men would read it, and men would appreciate it, and I could publish it under my own name. So that's what I'm going to do. I checked with Amazon, and they're okay with this. They're okay with me having a version of this book under my female romance pen name, and a book under my own pen name, under my name. And I've designed a cover for it, and it's exciting. And the great thing about this is I now get to talk about this book in an entirely different way, because when I was writing under a female pen name, I obviously didn't want to make videos or social media content or stuff like that, which, instead of some dark-haired temptress, that would be some dodgy ginger bloke with a British accent. But now I can nerd out on all this stuff, and I'm actually super excited. So I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to publish one of my romance books under my name as a thriller, and we'll see where it goes. The book is called High Point, and I'm going to be posting a little bit more about it as we go on. If you are interested in seeing what the heck I'm talking about, well, there's a link down there where you can get a free advanced reading copy of this book prior to publication. If you do that, I'm going to hit you up by your email address and ask you to write a review when the book goes live. If you could do that, that would be fab. I would really appreciate it. But the cover is kind of fun and exciting, and the great thing is I get to walk through the entire process of building up my own name as an author identity, and I can take you on that journey, which is really exciting, because I stumbled about and it took so long to figure out what I was doing under my romance pen name, but I eventually found that success. I'm hoping that I can replicate that success and replicate it at an accelerated pace and be successful as a writer under my own name. And I'm going to say this, it sounds arrogant, I think I deserve to be. I've been trying to be a writer since I was 9 years old, and I've written 25 full-length novels. I've done very successfully writing under a pen name. I think it's time I think it's time that I adopted what has been sitting there for me the whole time. I'm going to become a writer. I'm going to become an extremely successful writer under my own name. And I would be really excited if you would come along with me for that journey. Okay, I better go. I will speak to you soon. Cheers.